the forms of each document look sufficient to me.
And the bank is a foreign bank. Who is the letter of credit?
No, the bank has not been determined yet.
I'm confused why the town is rushing to agree to something that most of it is undecided yet and to be decided by the siting board or...
No, and let me see if I can clarify, and I apologize if I made a mistake. David, if you want to give it a shot, go ahead.
Well, the bank is determined in the letter of credit.
It's identified?
Oh, yeah. Landesbank Hessen Thüringen Gerätzentralle.
Yes.
New York Branch, 425th Avenue, New York, New York.
So I apologize. Again, this form, I
It's
did
an
not...
easy name to forget.
So I'm confusing. So the bank has been identified. And so in terms of your other points, Supervisor Hall, the siting board has already made determinations with respect to this. This is just based on a form letter of credit. And the decommissioning agreement, as I said before, it's for the benefit of the town to make clear how the town would draw on the letter of credit if it needed to.
Well, we had a letter of credit originally for the Peregrine project, and that bank went defunct about 2 years into the project. And I've never seen another letter of credit.
I mean,
So why isn't this with Chase Bank or?
I mean, the bank that you're picking in terms of the lenders and the availability of the credit, it's not like going to the local bank. These are obviously it's millions of dollars of funds, and these banks have to make sure that these lines of credits are available. There are tax equity and other investors that ensure that we'd be in violation of our permit and subject to enforcement to the extent that a line of credit or a letter of credit is not maintained in place. So, again, it's not an evaluation of the sufficiency of the bank even. It's just a sufficiency of the letter of credit.
What if any authority, I guess, for lack of does the Public Service Commission have in monitoring the letter of credit? As the supervisor says, what if this bank with the funny name goes bankrupt or goes into receivership?
So there's two things.
Does the FDIC take over and fulfill those obligations, or what happens?
There's two things. One is the Public Service Law provides the Public Service Commission enforcement authority by virtue of the certificate. And if the certificate is not being maintained, then potentially the project could be in violation of the certificate and have to stop operation. And it could even trigger decommissioning. If it's
Then the decommissioning is triggered, and so the letter of credit comes into play, but now the bank is no longer around to honor the letter of credit.
But we're suggesting that banks with assets in the trillions of dollars are no longer available. I mean, I think in that circumstance, there's going to be a bigger societal issue than whether or not there's a decommissioning event associated with the refund.
I get that, but I guess my question was specific to this bank and what happens if, God forbid, the bank runs out of deposits. Is there a way to substitute?
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, is there a mechanism by which the town of Cohocton would pick a bank and that inevitability, what you just mentioned, the hypothetical, that wouldn't be true of any bank?
Sure.
Do you
Sure.
think there's a bank that exists that couldn't be in the situation that you just mentioned?
The banks in the United States will always be bailed out by the federal government.
Okay, so
Always,
that's what
always,
that's
always.
true.
I'm not so sure about a bank in Germany.
Sure. So with respect to that, I mean, to the extent that the form letter of credit, again, which is, it's solely to show the town that a letter of credit is a financial security that's going to provide the mechanism that the city board has already approved. If that's something that's not acceptable to the town, then, I mean, this is something that the town has had for over 60 days. And David, this is the first comments I heard from you on this. So, I'm a little surprised that we're now questioning the financial solvency of trillion-dollar asset.
I'm not questioning the
I mean, it seems to
solvency,
me-
I'm
no, but
asking you
David,
what
it seems a
would
little
happen.
unreasonable. If we're talking about the hypothetical where the bank fails, it seems a little unreasonable to me that that's the circumstance we're talking about right now, and it's the only thing aside from us talking about the form letter of credit being approved.
I'm just asking what happens.
So I was saying, I was answering your question and then you posed another hypothetical. So the Public Service Commission has authority under Public Service Law. It also has authority under, well, there's actually two separate provisions. There's the certificate order itself, as well as there's authority under the Public Service Law in the public to serve the public interest. So those two provisions would give the Public Service Commission the ability to step in and enforce the provisions of the order on decommissioning.
So the authority, the responsibility then devolves to the Public Service Commission.
That's the ultimate permanent authority. I mean, it doesn't devolve. It's
already there.
under the Public Service Law.
All right. Okay.
I just don't want to get hung up about, on a hypothetical when we're talking about form.
Well, the hypothetical is that this town could be looking at 73 turbines that they have to take down in 20 years from now. And I seriously doubt that $100,000 a turbine is going to come anything close to.
So just to clarify, just so you know, Supervisor, it's not $100,000 a turbine, and that's the purpose for the decommissioning agreement in the letter of credit, so that the town doesn't have to do it.
And I'd like to look, because I thought originally when I looked at the Article 10 saving board and decommissioning, they were requiring cash in a bank that the
No.
towns would draw on.
So it's in 16 NYCRR 1029. It requires financial security, and the Department of Public Service made very clear in the order that the preferred financial security is a letter of credit, not cash in a bank, and that then ultimately that's the financial security of the same board order.
What are you hoping to get from us tonight?
So there's two things. There's approval of the form letter of credit, which David was talking about, as well as approval of the decommissioning agreement. And the decommissioning agreement, again, is just the town's right to withdraw on the funds in the event of a decommission. Those would be the two things that Wayland and Dansville have approved that we need to provide to the site board as part of our compliance.
Judy, don't we already have a decommissioning agreement with CWW, and don't we already have turbines that have been down for over a year, yet nothing's been done to take them down?
No, the planning board extended that, gave them a waiver.
Because they're going to
Because they were going into repower. They came to the planning board, if you'd have attended them right along, you'd know, Steve. The planning board, Judy was on it. They were there, Judy, when they come in, and you guys gave them an okay. First, I thought it was 6 months and then to a year or something to repower it.
And when is that year of?
Yeah, don't shake your head no, because you were there and you know I'm at all the meetings.
I didn't say no.
No,
I
you
didn't
go,
say
I was
it
watching
no.
your head. I'm used to working with you, Judy. Don't bitch going on me.
Well, you might let me answer your question or your
Okay, get going
comment
then. Sure.
before you start.
I'm just a
Yes, they
citizen of the
came to
town, you know.
repower. Yes, turbines were already past their 1-year mark. Now we have numerous ones past their 2-year mark. They were given a special use permit. They have not come back to speak to anybody, and the planning board hasn't talked to them about starting to decommission.
The process evidently is moving forward because people are receiving calls about their financing and everything else, and they're sending out estoppels to be sent. So I think they're moving forward, but they too would have probably been caught up in this COVID. I mean, you can't, everybody is. I mean, they're a company wanting to make funds too. They don't want these turbines that are on the hills not moving. It's not of any value to them.
Certainly not.
So, is the town still getting their money that they were supposed to get? You're still getting your payments. You're still getting your power.
Nobody's saying we're not.
All right, but so, you know, the burden of this business of being down is on CPP.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Does CPP still own the project?
They
That
use
is
their
Or did
name.
Darren Winds take that over too?
no, they
Oh.
have not.
A little different.
It's two different companies.
Huh?
He asked if he didn't say.
He said it's two
Yeah.
different companies, and CPP is the name of the project.
Wait, let's move on.
Not
So what, the board,
I think we've had discussions already, really to the board.
Say yeah, nay, go on it.
Who's talking?
John.
Oh.
Your deputy
I'm
supervisor.
sorry, I couldn't see him.
Oh,
I couldn't hear what
it's
you
like a ventriloquist dummy. Sorry?
Nobody's already on his hands.
I have not looked at this, David, and I discussed it a little a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not comfortable with doing it until I actually look at the documents. We're having a special meeting. That Monday, I would be willing to have done my homework by then.
So you want to vote on this since the 19th special meeting?
Yeah.
The 14th will be the.
For the
Oh,
14th,
sorry.
I'm sorry, the special. Because I have not looked at it since last month, and I apologize, I just, it's never been on.
If there's any questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to have David reach out. Just so I was clear, that's September 14th, that's the date of the special meeting, and that's at what time?
7 o'clock at the town hall, which is
Yeah,
down
yeah.
there this year.
No, it's a village.
Oh,
In the village.
I knew, yeah. It's at the
oh, the
village.
village? That way. Oh, I thought it was at Hatcho's, okay. It's the village.
I had no direction.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
If you're going to be making a decision on this at the 14th meeting, should your ad be changed from the motion before for the joint meeting for the ambulance commissioners and the town board? It should also include,
Any other business that comes to the board. Yes, I
Are you still doing it?
So,
Yes, yeah, we are.
just, I don't want to bog down a productive ambulance commissioner meeting with this. Our meeting is 2 days afterwards on the 16th.
Oh, that is next one, you're right.
Finalize this
One
one.
day after. You're right.
All right, so we'll take care of this on the 15th.
Because otherwise, we're going to bog down that meeting that's about something else. So,
well, the regular town board meeting is next September 15th.
Then I guess consider this the formal request if necessary to be on the agenda.
Yes, yep.
For the town board meeting. That's September 15th,
September 16th.
September 16th.
It's the 15th, Mike.
Oh, I'm looking at that. The numbers don't fit anything. I don't know what I'm looking at.
Feel free to send me an email.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Allen, you said you needed.
No, I said feel free to send me a reminder if you like that time.
If you haven't.
Which I wish I would have done this time.
Well, I mean, ordinarily we correspond with the town attorney, but you know, to the extent Supervisor, it's better to do it directly through you. I'm happy to do that.
Judy?
Okay, just going back to this letter, it was stated in here that the ethics committee members are using their appointed positions for personal or private gain. there is no way on the cases that we have had that we would ever get any personal or private gain out of it. There is nothing. What could we get? There's right is right, wrong is wrong. Then on the one that was about the appointment to the zoning board, we went to a lawyer. The lawyer explained to us that there was absolutely no problem with that anyone, even if they are in litigation, can be on the board. So,
Provided, can I just
add to it, sure, please.
provided that if a matter comes up involving a wind energy company, recusal is probably appropriate.
Yes, yes, they have been advised of that. He must have been advised of that. So those are just some things that we want to realize, that the ethics board has no gains whatsoever. And when it comes to having a discussion, there was a discussion. And it was about some property that I own. And the deed was found on the copier at the courthouse. The deed had always been in my safe at home. How the person got the deed, I don't know. Now, I know you can go to Steuben and get it, but this was somebody in our own area that came up with the deed and only copied half of it, so she left the other half on the copier. That is nobody's business. That was mine. The code enforcer had miscoded, or the assessor had miscoded the deed. So somebody felt they could use that deed to become the owner, to get permits, to change things at a home. It just happens that I own that home without getting permission from me first. And it's supposed to go through on the lease. That person is to come to me first before any permits are assigned, okay? The code enforcer had been informed by me 6-8 months ago, because they went ahead and did a project without telling me, and I found out about it on Facebook. So, okay, I went to the code enforcer and said, no more of this. Don't give them a permit unless you check with me. Well, that person showed the tax information, which had been from the assessor, which had been incorrectly coded. So he took it and issued permits. And all of this has gone around and around and around. There are people in this community that are supposed to be doing jobs that aren't doing jobs. The code enforcer was wrong because he should know. I had to get a lawyer. My lawyer said that tax paper in no way means that that person owns the property until that piece of property and home is paid for in full. So they jumped the gun. The code enforcer went ahead anyways and gave it to him and said, this is the way I do it. So we have dealt with the code enforcer. He knows that he has to change it and look to make sure he knows that the person that's applying for a permit is the sole owner, because I'm sure that, like Mr. Miller wouldn't like somebody to go and change the home he owns and have it built on or changed totally without it being either are. And actually, and I would charge the house, and I realize that people live in a house, they gotta fix it. They need repairs. I'm the first one to want it kept up.
No,
But I think you
your
should
point
be
is
told.
fair.
You should be told first.
Judy, why would you have access to anything on the town copier?
I happened to be in a meeting with the code enforcer, and someone came in and said, what is this doing on the copier? And looked at me, and I looked and I said, that's my deed, which I had spent all morning digging into my safe to get it out. So it was nothing I had ever given anybody. I have no idea. And it was an old piece of paper because there were many clip marks, staple marks, and they had taken out the staples. And my deed that I had in my hand had those same little staple marks. So we know that someone is not behaving. I shouldn't be laughing, right? But I just wanted to know, but when you go back to the ethics committee, right is right and wrong is wrong. And when somebody is told that they've done wrong, they might as well accept it. And that's all I have.
Anyone else? Board concerns?